The world told me I was poor, but heaven declared I was wealthy. They said I had to hustle. Heaven said I had to speak. They told me to sacrifice and climb the mountain of man-made success. But the Spirit whispered, "Stand still and speak the word, and I will deliver it unto thee." I was not born to be a slave to the visible. I was born to command the invisible. And so are you. You may think you're watching this video to learn how to become a multimillionaire. But let me tell you the truth. You are already a multimillionaire in the realm of spirit. You do not become what you say, you reveal what already is by speaking it into form. Every dollar, every contract, every opportunity, every divine appointment already exists in the invisible warehouse of the word. I did not chase it. I did not earn it. I declared it. And it came to me under grace, in perfect ways. When I say, I am a multimillionaire, I am not describing a desire. I am wielding the name of God. I am that I am, said the Lord to Moses. That is not a riddle. That is a legal announcement in the court of divine law. It is the password that parts the sea. It is the key that unlocks the treasury. When you say, I am, you are stepping into your eternal identity, not what the world calls you, not what your bank account echoes back to you, but what Spirit already knows to be true. You are rich now. You are provided for now. You are supplied now. But your mouth must catch up with heaven. You see, I was once like you, waiting, hoping, afraid to declare the good lest I be disappointed. I thought faith meant silently believing, but I learned it means boldly decreeing. I thought wealth came from action, but I learned it comes from authority. I was waiting on God, but God was waiting on my word. And the moment I spoke, not from fear, not from force, but from love, everything changed. Money showed up, people offered checks, old debts vanished, new doors swung open. Why? Because I said one thing. I am a multimillionaire by divine right, and the supply is here now. Let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich. Why? Because your mouth is the seat of your dominion. Your tongue is not a suggestion, it is a decree. It is the gavel that bangs in the court of heaven and commands all substance to obey. Your word is your wand. You wave it over lack, and it dissolves. You wave it over debt, and it disappears. You wave it over confusion, and it becomes divine order. I will say this once, and I will say it with fire. The wealth you are waiting for is waiting for your word. It will not move until you command it. It will not show up until you identify as it. You are not here to earn. You are here to decree. And the tongue in your mouth is the throne from which you rule your kingdom. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee. That is not poetry. That is legal fact in the courtroom of God. So say it with me now, not timidly, not hypothetically, not someday, but now. I am a multimillionaire by divine law. The substance is mine now. The wealth obeys my word. I speak it into law. And so it is. Are you ready to walk with me into this dominion? Then stay with me. The world is about to watch you rise because you opened your mouth and spoke. Not from emotion, but from authority. Not from begging, but from being. Not from hope, but from law. Poverty is not a condition, it is a confession, a spell spoken over and over until the one who cast it forgets that they were the magician all along. Hypnotized by the illusion they themselves upheld with every whispered fear, every casual complaint, every declaration of, I can't afford it, every unconscious agreement with lack, limitation, and delay, never realizing that these words were not reflections of reality but the very architects of it, building brick by invisible brick, the prison of smallness that so many live in while blaming the economy, their upbringing, the news, the neighbor, the balance in the bank, when in truth it is not the lack of money but the misuse of mouth that sustains their bondage, for the world responds not to your need but to your word. You are not created to live at the mercy of numbers on a screen or coins in a jar. You were formed in the image and likeness of the Creator, whose first act was not to labor, not to hustle, not to negotiate, but to speak. Let there be light, and there was light. And that divine blueprint remains unchanged for you, beloved. For you have been given the same mouth, the same breath, the same authority to call forth what is unseen into what is seen. And yet most continue to speak, not what they desire but what they dread, not what they hope for but what they fear, and in doing so they reverse the creative current of heaven, turning their word, their wand, their throne of dominion into a faucet of delay, watering the weeds of doubt and wondering why no harvest of riches ever grows. But I tell you now, with the rhythm of truth echoing in your soul, that poverty is not your destiny. It is not your trial. It is not your cross to bear. It is not God's test or timing or punishment. It is a false decree, a vibration of error, a garment of unworthiness that you must cast off by the authority of the word. For the kingdom of heaven is not in meat and drink, not in checks and balances, not in hours clocked or resumes perfected, but in righteousness, peace, and joyous, and also in substance, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, but only to the mouth that dares to claim it. For you see, the world will sell you a story of poverty, as virtue, as humility, as realism. But I come not to flatter you. I come to free you, to break that agreement, to remind you that your inheritance is wealth, your nature is abundance, and your speech is the golden key. And if you are still speaking like a slave, you will never walk like a sovereign. And if you are still prophesying delay, you will never live in divine timing. And if you are still saying, I can't, I don't know how, I'm trying, then your mouth has been hijacked by the lie. And it is time, yes, time right now, to repossess the temple of your tongue and re-sanctify it in truth. And what is the truth? The truth is this: you are not broke, you are not stuck, you are not waiting, you are not small, you are not forgotten, you are not behind, you are not late, you are not unqualified, you are not lacking, you are not cursed, you are not unworthy, you are not a victim, you are not just surviving, you are a living current of divine substance. You are a voice of wealth in human form. You are a steward of God's storehouse. You are a mouthpiece of the miraculous. You are a king who forgot he had the crown in his pocket. And it is Timyes, this very memento, place it back upon your head, straighten your back, open your mouth, and decree what heaven has been waiting to echo. So I say again, not with emotion but with dominion, poverty is not real. It is only as real as your last sentence. And if your sentence has been one of lack, then let this be the moment you reverse it. Let this be the moment you say, I break all contracts with the illusion of poverty. I erase every word of lack spoken by me or over me. I declare, I am supplied, I am wealthy, I am sourced, I am a multi-millionaire by divine law, and the treasury opens now. Let the weak say, I am strong. Let the broke say, I am rich. Let the bound say, I am free. And if you dare to say it not to test it, not to see what happens, but to establish it as law, then the law will rise to meet your word and prove itself faithful, for the word cannot return void. But it can remain unspoken. And if your mouth has been on mute, it is time to turn up the volume and silence the lie once and for all. It did not begin with an investor, a mentor, a business plan, or a brilliant idea scribbled in the back of a notebook. It did not begin with an inheritance, or a spreadsheet, or a calculated marketing strategy, or a sudden lucky break that happened to land in the lap of a hustler working round the brow. Clock it began, as all things of true wealth must begin, with a word, not a word of fear or frantic striving, not a word of probability or lukewarm hopefulness, but a word spoken in the rhythm of spiritual certainty, a word carrying the frequency of heaven, a word so aligned with divine substance that all of creation responded in obedience the way it did in the beginning when God said, Let there be, because you must understand, my beloved, that nothing formed was formed without the word, and if your wealth is to be formed, it must be spoken into formation. You see, long before the first dollar appeared in my bank account, long before the doors opened or the channels flowed or the opportunities presented themselves in natural form. I had already walked in millions in the spirit, because I spoke it daily, not as a request but as a reality, not as a wish but as a law, saying, I am a multimillionaire by divine right. Not to impress the heavens or persuade some reluctant force to bless me, but to step into the vibration of what already was, to take my seat at the table that had been prepared for me since before time, to align my identity not with appearances, which lie, but with essence, which endures. And when I say the first million began with my mouth, I mean it quite literally, for nothing appeared in hand that had not first been issued by tongue. I began every morning not with coffee or complaint or checking my accounts or measuring my progress or rehearsing my problems, but with a decree, a sovereign decree, a divine decree, a declaration not shaped by how I felt or what I feared or what the world expected of me, but by the unchanging laws of God's wealth system, which states plainly and repeatedly that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. And when I remembered that God and I are one, and that my mouth is not mine but His instrument, I stopped using it to describe what is, and began using it to declare what must be. I said it when I was tired. I said it when I was tempted to doubt. I said it when it looked like the opposite. I said it when bills came. I said it when nothing changed. I said it when my flesh mocked me. I said it when the voice of the world said, "You sound ridiculous." I said it with holy stubbornness. I said it with fierce peace. I said it with zero compromise. I am a multi-millionaire by divine law. My supply is instant. My channels are open. My wealth flows now. And though nothing shifted at first in the outer, everything began to reorder in the inner. My emotions stopped dictating my declarations. My feelings stopped deciding my speech. I became the legislator of my reality, not a victim of delay, not a servant to appearances, not a beggar waiting for permission to prosper. Let me tell you something that will disrupt the whole narrative the world has given you. Your first million is already complete in the invisible. It is waiting for your mouth to open the vault. It is waiting for your tongue to turn the key. It is waiting for your decree to make it legal. Because the world responds not to hoping, not to trying, not to working yourself. To the bone it responds to law, and law is released by the spoken word. Until it is spoken, it is potential. Once it is spoken, it becomes a mandate. Heaven's resources do not answer to noise. They answer to divine command. So let me ask you this. What have you been saying? Have you been saying what is? Or have you been saying what must be? Have you been rehearsing limitation? Or declaring supply? Have you been talking about the delay? Or speaking the law of divine timing? Have you been describing your environment? Or creating it? Because every sentence you speak is a seed, and that seed does not care whether it is a seed of wealth or worry, it simply multiplies after its kind. Speak wisely. Speak richly. Speak rhythmically. Speak lawfully. Speak like the throne is listening, because it is. And once your word is issued, it does not return void. It returns with wealth, with order, with divine acceleration. So say it now, with full breath and full authority. My first million is in my mouth. I speak it into law. I speak it into form. I speak it into motion. And I speak it until it appears. I am the legislator of wealth. I am the mouthpiece of divine riches. I am a multi-millionaire by the creative power of the word. The word is working now. And once you've said that, you are no longer chasing money. You are commanding it. You are no longer waiting on opportunity. You are releasing it. You are no longer describing life, you are authoring it. Shall we move on? The next law awaits. Let us now come to the foundation beneath all substance, the invisible scaffolding upon which every mansion of abundance is built, the root beneath the harvest, the law beneath the miracle, the reason why the tongue is the most powerful organ of creation and the most dangerous when left to the unconscious wanderings of fear and description. Because if you do not understand that your word is not merely language but legislation, not merely sound but spiritual statute, not merely affirmation but divine commandment, Then you will continue to speak as if your words are weak opinions, instead of royal decrees that shape the corridors of the unseen, vibrate through the ethers of substance, and summon into form the riches of divine supply itself. And I say this with the weight of heaven behind me. The word is not symbolic, it is structural. It is not a metaphor for action, it is the generator of manifestation. You have been taught by the world to wait for provision before you speak as one who has. But heaven demands the reverse. You must speak as one who has, in order to see the provision, because what is visible bows to what is vocal, and the word, when spoken in spiritual alignment, does not ask permission, it gives instruction. It does not describe the chaos, it establishes the cosmos. It does not repeat the problem, it overrides it with spiritual architecture. And this, beloved, is why Isaiah 55:11 was given, not as poetry but as physics, as spiritual mechanics. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. And if God has said this about his word, and if you are made in his image, then your word, when spoken from union with the Christ, within carries the same unfailing nature. Now understand. The word that returns void is not the word of law, but the word of fear, of complaint, of sarcasm, of idle speech, of emotional reaction, and such words are like arrows fired at fog. They create more confusion and reinforce the illusion of lack. But the word that returns full is the word that is issued like a royal edict, a legal utterance from the throne room of consciousness, spoken not from panic, but from posture, not from emotion, but from dominion, and that word carries with it an invisible instruction to the very fabric of reality, to align, to open, to yield, to create, to manifest. And when I speak of the spiritual physics of wealth, I am not entertaining metaphor, I am describing law, I am revealing the divine circuitry that has been ignored by those who believe the path to riches is purely action or intellect or inheritance or effort. But I declare to you today, it is voice before vision, word before wallet, decree before deposit, sentence before substance. And if you will stop treating your word like a hope and begin treating it like a gavel, if you will stop issuing apologies in your vocabulary and start issuing laws, if you will remove the language of uncertainty, of wondering, of victimhood, and replace it with the clear, rhythmic, non-negotiable declarations of truth that heaven cannot resist nor delay, then you will see what I saw. You will see the spiritual world open like a scroll. You will see divine connections appear that no strategy could have engineered. You will see payments arrive without human logic. You will see contracts handed to you without hustle. You will see opportunities whisper your name in rooms you never entered, because you will have spoken what the world calls impossible, and in doing so, you will override the world's laws with the higher government of divine law. This is why I say, your mouth is not casual, it is royal. Your voice is not harmless, it is legislative. Your sentence is not neutral, it is a supernatural assignment. Your word is not air, it is architecture. It is blueprint. It is force. It is law. And when you understand this, you will no longer speak as a servant describing the economy. You will speak as a sovereign commanding substance. And you will stop asking, "Can I afford this?" and begin declaring, "Every channel is open. Every supply is free. Every bill is met. Every dollar needed is already dispatched in spirit and appearing in form." So lift your voice now, not softly, not shakily, not with question marks, but with clarity and command, and say this, not as mimicry, but as mandate. My word is law. My word is wealth. My word is the opening of the treasury. My word is my inheritance, my authority, and my wealth generator. I speak what is true in spirit, and so it becomes true in matter. I legislate prosperity with my decree. My wealth begins, accelerates, and multiplies at the sound of my voice. My word returns with abundance. And it shall, because the treasury does not respond to wishers, it responds to speakers. There is something undeniable that occurs in the soul of one who finally stops speaking what they see and begins to speak what they are not, what they hope to be, not what they wish might come one day in the distant fog of effort and timing and coincidence, but what they already are in the invisible, what they are in the language of God, what they are in the eternal now. And that something is a collapse of delay, a collapse of waiting, a collapse of trying to make something happen, and a holy surrender into the rhythm of divine flow, where the word spoken in authority becomes the bridge between the realm of unformed spirit and the world of tangible wealth. And I say this not as a theory but as a testimony, not as encouragement but as evidence, for there came a time clear and quiet and bold when I did not have much, but I had a sentence, and I chose to speak that sentence not once, not occasionally, not when I felt good or when I remembered, but every single day for 90 days, as though my very breath depended on it. And it was not shouted or screamed or dramatized, it was spoken in rhythm, in stillness, in law. God is my unfailing supply. Large sums of money come to me quickly, under grace, in perfect ways. I spoke it not as a ritual but as a return to divine order, not as a performance but as a pronouncement, not to convince God but to align myself with what God had already ordained, that supply is not delayed, that money is not random, that the source is never blocked and the channels are never truly closed except by the spoken doubts of man himself. And I chose for 90 days not to ask how, not to explain when, not to argue with appearances, not to check constantly for proof, but to speak the word, speak the word, speak the word, morning after morning, moment after moment, each time not trying to get something but remembering I already had it, and something sacred happened. My mind stopped racing, my emotions settled, and the vibration of lack that had previously haunted my atmosphere, like a fog lifted like mist in the sun, for the word began to replace the worry, and with it came what the world calls coincidences, but I call substance answering spirit. An unexpected refund appeared from an account I had forgotten, and then a client I had not spoken to in years wrote a check without request, and then opportunities emerged through channels I would never have designed or foreseen, and bills that loomed like Goliaths fell without battle, and I realized with awe and quiet joy that nothing was coming. It had always been circling, waiting for the atmosphere of permission, which is created by the spoken word. And I saw clearly that the money was not held back by economy or timing or effort or intelligence, but only by contradiction in speech. For once the contradiction ceased, and the word was made law by repetition and reverence and rhythm, the wealth obeyed. You may ask, was it hard? No, it was holy. Was it fast? It was faithful. Did it always feel like it was working? No, but the law does not ask how you feel. The law asks what you say, and what you say becomes the soil into which divine substance roots itself. And so I said it when I felt poor. I said it when I felt rich. I said it when nothing seemed to change. I said it when everything changed. I said it when I wanted to quit. And I said it when the floodgates opened. And that, beloved, is how heaven trains a soul for wealth, not by striving but by speaking. So let me hand you this sword, this formula, this fire-tested decree that did not just fill my account but restructured my reality, and let me ask you not whether you believe it in theory, but whether you are willing to make it law in your own life. God is my unfailing supply. Large sums of money come to me quickly, under grace, in perfect ways, and if you are brave enough to say it daily, without deviation, without question, without dilution, if you are willing to make your mouth the holy temple of truth rather than the echo chamber of fear, if you are willing to plant this sentence for 90 days and water it with gratitude, instead of digging it up with doubt, then I promise you this, not as a promise from me, but as a covenant from law, itself money will answer. And it will answer richly, and it will not come slowly or struggle to arrive. It will appear like fruit in season, like water in drought, like provision already appointed. Because the sentence you speak becomes the substance you see. Say it, hold it, repeat it, and let it carry you across the threshold. Now let us begin the architecture of holy transformation. For no man builds a cathedral by accident, and no woman stumbles into divine wealth by mere wish or wandering hope. The structure of heaven's provision rests not upon the randomness of desire, nor upon the instability of circumstance, but upon the clarity of spiritual identity. And until you stop calling yourself trying, almost getting there, or not enough, and instead begin to speak from the Holy of Holies where the I Am dwells, unshaken and unbothered by appearances, you will remain outside the gates of the treasury while holding the keys in your mouth. And I say unto you this: the first divine habit of all who walk in visible wealth is the relentless, rhythmic identification with what is already true in spirit, even when it is not yet seen in form. And this is not pretending, this is not performance, this is not delusion, it is divine law. To say, I am rich, is not to boast of what your bank account reflects. It is to come into agreement with what heaven already ordained and what divine substance already declared from the foundations of the world. Because when God revealed himself to Moses in the burning bush and said, I am that I am, he was not offering a poetic riddle. He was revealing the core name of all reality, the generative principle that undergirds every act of creation. And when you say, I am, you are not simply affirming something, you are activating a blueprint. You are connecting your consciousness to the generator of form. You are announcing to the seen and unseen realms alike that you no longer speak from your senses, but from your source. And if your source is divine, then your substance must follow, for the river cannot produce what the spring does not contain, and the spring of God contains only abundance, only overflow, only perfection, only opulence, only divine order, and therefore you must reject all lesser labels, cast down all false titles, break agreement with every identity that echoes, struggle, or delay, or insufficiency, and you must daily, audibly, joyfully say, from your soul, I am divine wealth. I am the visible expression of invisible supply. I am one with the treasury of heaven. I am the circulation point of unlimited riches. And do not say it once, as if checking a box. Say it again and again, until it melts every resistance, until it drowns out the old voices of lack and fear, until it becomes more natural to say, I am wealthy, than to say, I'm trying, until your inner speech becomes a river of truth so wide and so strong that doubt has no place to root. And let this be the new ritual. Upon waking, before looking at your phone, before checking your balance, before reviewing your plans, speak this identity into the ether and let it echo through the architecture of your day. Because when you speak it first, you call it forth. When you declare it early, you frame the atmosphere. When you start with the I am, you do not end with lack. This is not just morning motivation. This is metaphysical mastery. This is how divine wealth begins. Not by earning, not by chasing, but by embodying the truth that already is. And you do not wait for evidence to affirm it. You do not beg for proof. You do not tiptoe around appearances as if they are more real than spirit. You stand boldly, as one who knows. And you speak the thing you are, not the thing you fear, and you say it because it is law, and law does not negotiate, it governs. So make this your daily, hourly, eternal confession, not from stress, not from strain, but from sovereign stillness. I am wealthy because God is my source. I am rich because my identity is one with supply. I am abundance in form. I am the expression of divine increase. And if you say this long enough, clear enough, faithfully enough, the world will mirror it, not because the world changed first, but because you did. You are not on your way to wealth. You are already wealth in expression. Speak accordingly. Walk accordingly. Be accordingly. Because the I am is not a wish. It is a word, and the word is law. You must understand, beloved, that no day is neutral. Every morning stands at the edge of becoming. Every sunrise waits on command. Every hour has ears. And every moment you fail to speak with authority, the world begins to speak for you, and what it speaks is chaos, fear, repetition, and limitation cloaked in the language of logic and draped in the garments of realism. But I say unto you, you are not called to wake up under the weight of circumstances, nor to check the weather of your feelings to decide your reality. For you are not a thermometer reflecting condition. You are a thermostat commanding environment. And until you learn to decree before the day begins, you will keep dancing to the rhythm of appearances instead of setting the rhythm with the drumbeat of divine decree. The divine does not wait for the earth to offer signals before speaking. No. In the beginning, God said, "Let there be light." And it was only after the word went forth that form obeyed and light appeared. And so must it be with you. For the pattern is eternal. The decree comes before the dawn. The spoken word precedes the seen wealth. And if you wake in silence, if you rise in worry, if you begin with scrolling and sighing and calculating and remembering what didn't happen yesterday, then the day takes shape without the hand of your spirit guiding it. But when you wake and say before your feet touch the floor, say before your hands reach the tasks, say before your mind starts replaying the old song of delay, and doubt when you say, "This is a day of divine provision. I walk into increase. Supply meets me at every turn. God goes before me and prepares channels I have not seen." Then you do not just live the day, you reign over it. You must learn to speak before breakfast, to speak before inbox, to speak before traffic and bills and clients and voices, for the first word of your day is the seed of all that shall unfold, and it is not small, it is not ritual, it is not mere habit, it is architecture, it is blueprint, it is legislation from the courtroom of heaven, and heaven will not build what you have not spoken, and angels will not move where you have not decreed, and the treasury does not pour unless the vault of your mouth is opened in faith, in rhythm, and in royal expectation. This is the difference between the wealthy in spirit and the weary in soul. The wealthy decree from their throne before they check the map of the battlefield. The weary check the battle report before they decide whether or not to speak. But I tell you the truth, nothing on the battlefield matters when your word has already won the war. And so I charge you, rise up and rule, not with effort but with utterance, not with striving but with speech. And let your first act of the morning be a decree. Let your first breath be prophecy. Let your first sound be dominion. For the word made flesh begins as the word made audible. You are not here to react to your day. You are here to create it. And creation begins with command, not complaint. With divine instruction, not emotional reflection. So write it down now, your morning word, your first decree, the shape of your wealth spoken into time before time can resist it, and say it out loud, not once, but until the walls tremble and the atmosphere shifts, and heaven recognizes the voice of a son, of a daughter, of a king, who remembers that to decree is not ambition, it is alignment. And what shall you decree? Say it now and say it often. This day opens with favor. I receive divine instruction. Every appointment is divinely timed. Every dollar that belongs to me finds me now. My words call forth the unseen. My voice opens gates. I am met with increase and overflow before the sun sets. Say it like you mean it. Say it like it's law. Say it because it is law. Because the morning is not simply for coffee or calendars or clocks, it is the womb of the day, and the one who speaks first is the one who governs. And if you speak with fear, fear shall govern. If you speak with doubt, delay shall reign. But if you speak with authority, with divine I am certainty, then supply must follow, doors must open, and every step of your day will echo the decree that framed it. So decree before you do, speak before you step, command before you calculate, and you will find that the day is not your burden, but your servant. Speak it so, and it shall be so. There is a moment that comes to every soul who dares to walk by faith and not by sight. A moment when the winds howl and the appearances scream and the bills pile up and the phone remains silent and the doors look locked and the logic says turn back and the emotion says give up and the world says be reasonable and even your own mind whispers, what if it's not working? And in that moment, many who once spoke with boldness begin to retract, to tremble, to reverse their decree with the poison of hesitation and the betrayal of self-doubt. For fear always comes dressed in the garments of safety, always speaks with the voice of caution, always disguises itself as realism or preparation or prudence. But make no mistake, my dear listener, fear is not your friend, it is not your wisdom, It is not your intuition. It is a reversal spell, a silent assassin, a false prophet sent to sabotage your supply. And if you do not cast it out like a thief, it will undo every word you've sown, every decree you've planted, every channel you've opened with faith, and it will replace them with shadows that have no substance. For fear is a vacuum, and your wealth cannot dwell where it is not welcome. You must understand this, and I say it with the fire of spiritual urgency. The greatest contradiction to your spoken word is not what others say, not what the economy does, not what your past held, but what you entertain after the word has been spoken. For every doubt aloud after the decree becomes a leak in the pipe, a crack in the temple wall, a weakening of the structure that should have been indestructible. And so I charge you now, in the name of all that is true and eternal and aligned with divine law, cancel nothing with fear. Do not let your late-night worries reverse your morning prophecy. Do not let the sight of the bill undo the power of the spoken blessing. Do not let a delay convince you that heaven has denied you, for delay is not denial, and silence is not absence. And what looks like nothing is often the space where everything is forming, and the law never sleeps, and the word never fails, and your supply is on schedule even if you cannot see the calendar. Fear must be cast out, not reasoned with. You do not negotiate with thieves, and you do not debate with devourers. You rebuke them, you evict them. You speak against them until they tremble at the sound of your confidence. And what shall you say? Say this with me now, not as ritual, but as roar. I cast the burden of fear upon the Christ within, and I go free. I no longer fear not having enough, for I walk with the God who is more than enough. I no longer fear delay, for divine timing is perfect and never late. I no longer fear appearances, for I know the law is working beneath the surface. Let this be your holy protocol. Every time fear speaks, answer back. Do not let it have the last word. If it whispers, "What if it doesn't come?" you say, "It already has, in spirit, and the substance shall follow." If it hisses, "You're behind," you reply, "I am in divine alignment, and my supply runs ahead of me." If it dares to say, "There's not enough," you declare, "My source is infinite, and I live in overflow." You cannot afford to be polite with fear. It is not a guest. It is a trespasser. And divine law will enforce your eviction notice, but only if you serve it. Speak boldly. Speak without apology. Speak when you feel it and when you don't. Speak when the winds rise and when the house shakes. Speak even when your knees tremble, because the law does not respond to trembling, it responds to truth. And truth must be spoken louder than fear, every single time. So now make it your vow, your habit, your spiritual hygiene. Cancel nothing with fear, doubt nothing you've declared, rehearse no contradiction, and let fear find no place to land in your inner sanctuary. Your mouth is the altar, your word is the fire, and your faith is the fragrance that draws wealth like bees to honey. You are not here to fear, you are here to form. You are not here to tremble, you are here to govern. You are not here to rehearse the pattern of lack. You are here to decree the order of abundance. And every time fear tries to pull you back into the old system of panic and projection, you will remember that you already spoke it into law, and law does not bend for fear. Say it now and say it forever. I cancel nothing with fear. I water every word with faith. I live by law, not by feeling. And all that I've spoken in truth now rushes toward me, under grace, in perfect ways. And so it is. There comes a sacred shift in the soul of man when he ceases to speak from the tremble of his feelings and begins to speak from the throne of law, when he no longer waits for his emotions to be perfect before he proclaims what is already perfect in spirit, when he no longer seeks the approval of appearances before opening his mouth in power. For the law does not respond to emotion, it responds to instruction, and the word of power is not born in the realm of sentiment, it is born in the realm of certainty, in the realm where God himself said, "Let there be light," not because he felt light, not because the world looked light, but because he was light, and because he spoke from his own nature, not from the condition of the void. And if you are made in the image and likeness of God, and you are called to speak not what you feel, but what you know to be eternally true. even when your senses betray you, even when the bank statement lies, even when the phone is silent and the inbox is empty, and the news says panic, and the world says collapse, and your friends say be realistic. Even then, especially then, you speak from law and not from emotion. You see, emotion is a weather pattern, but law is the sky beneath it. Emotion is a passing wave, but law is the ocean floor. Emotion is the cloud that drifts, but law is the gravity that holds the earth in place. And if you try to build your wealth, your declarations, your supply, and your spiritual identity on the shaky scaffolding of emotion, you will be blown about by every gust of circumstance, by every late payment, every rejected proposal, every slow week, every unsupportive voice, every disappointing phone call. But if you anchor yourself in law, if you plant your feet in the immovable word that says, "Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee," then it will not matter how you feel when you say it, because divine law does not require your mood, it requires your mouth. When you speak from law, you speak as one who commands the invisible. You speak as the general, not the soldier. You speak as the architect, not the bricklayer. You speak as the heir, not the orphan. You say, "My supply is constant because my source is eternal, even when the invoice arrives." You say, "My wealth increases daily because I am one with divine substance, even when your wallet feels thin." You say, "Money flows to me richly, rapidly, and repeatedly, even when the world tries to tell you to fear, because your word is not an echo of what is, it is a decree of what shall be." The law is not emotional. The law is precise. It does not ask, "How do you feel today?" It asks, "What have you spoken today?" And if your word aligns with divine truth, then heaven and earth begin rearranging themselves to reflect that word, not because you were emotional, but because you were in dominion. And let me say it plainly, the most powerful words I ever spoke were not the ones I felt deeply in my bones. They were the ones I spoke despite how I felt, the ones I spoke when I felt afraid but chose faith, when I felt empty but chose overflow, when I felt late but chose divine timing, when I felt forgotten but chose the throne of remembrance. And those words, those cold, firm, unshaken words worked miracles because they were rooted in law and not in feeling. And that is what must happen in you now. You must cross the threshold from feeling-led speech to faith-filled speech. You must decide that your tongue is not a thermometer, but a thermostat. You are not here to report on the temperature of your reality, you are here to set it. You are not here to speak about what is, you are here to speak to what must become. This is the ministry of the spoken word. This is the priesthood of your mouth. This is the architecture of divine wealth. So when the storm comes, you do not describe the rain, you speak to the sea, "Peace, be still." When the fig tree bears no fruit, you do not explain the lack, you say, "Never again shall you bear lack in my life." When the table looks empty, you do not mourn the absence, you say, "Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies." And when your soul feels weak, when your body feels tired, when your heart feels weary, you say, "Let the weak say, I am strong." And the law hears you not because you were loud, but because you were legal, because you spoke from the court of divine truth and not from the feelings of the flesh. Let this be your covenant now. I no longer speak from emotion. I speak from eternal law. I no longer wait to feel it. I command it. I no longer report the appearance, I legislate the future. My tongue is not swayed by shadows. My word is established, and all of heaven confirms it. This is your identity. This is your power. This is your wealth. And it begins not in the heart, not in the mood, not in the motivation, but in the mouth that dares to speak law in the middle of lack. And so, I ask you now, what will you speak today? Will you repeat the emotions of yesterday, or will you legislate the overflow of eternity? Will you echo your fear, or will you declare your future? Will you wait for the feeling, or will you walk by faith? Because the word that made me a multi-millionaire did not begin as a feeling. It began as a law, spoken, unshaken, and fulfilled. So shall it be with you. Now let me tell you what happens when the word is not just a phrase or a positive thought or a passing affirmation whispered into the mirror with fingers crossed, but when it becomes the only anchor, the only law, the only ground you stand on, when all else has fallen away, and the word becomes the total government of your world. For there was a woman ordinary by the world's standards, extraordinary in the eyes of spirit, who found herself staring down an impossible deadline, her rent due in 10 days, no paycheck in sight, no client promising anything, no favor being shown, no human rescue coming through the usual channels, and everything in the natural said panic, said worry, said beg, said collapse. But she had read my words, she had studied the law, and when the temptation came to speak fear, to confess defeat, to narrate her lack to friends and family and circumstances, she chose instead to turn her face to heaven and her voice to law, and she declared, firmly and rhythmically, not just once but every morning and every night, "This is God's rent, not mine. Divine substance pays all obligations in perfect ways. I cannot be separated from my supply." And she did not waver, though the clock ticked and the 9th day came and she still had not seen it, and the phone had not rung, and the email had not arrived, and the check had not been promised. But her mouth remained in command, and her spirit remained in certainty, and her environment may have looked dry, but her inner world was bursting with faith. And that is the secret. My dear listener, not what happens to you, but what happens through you. Not what the bank account says, but what your word says. Not what the facts declare, but what your spirit decrees. For on the 10th day, the day that would have been called too late by those who worship the God of appearances, a check arrived, unexpected, unsolicited, unguaranteed, from a source she had long forgotten, covering the rent to the exact dollar, no delay, no debt, no explanation. And I tell you plainly, it did not come because she worked harder or worried more or begged louder, but because she spoke, because she dared to command her environment by law and not by logic. Now some will say that was coincidence, or luck, or timing, but I say unto you, it was the word fulfilling itself. It was the law responding to authority. It was divine substance hearing the voice of its rightful steward and obeying, because the word never returns void, not when it is spoken in alignment, not when it is spoken without contradiction, not when it is spoken with joy, with conviction, with the assurance that what you declare with your mouth and believe in your heart and refuse to cancel with fear must come to pass, not by your toil but by your tongue. You see, the rent was never the problem. The amount was never the obstacle. The calendar was never the threat. The problem was never the lack, it was the lie of lack. The voice of fear that tries to enter the gate and dismantle your dominion. But this woman did what most will not. She spoke only what she wanted, multiplied. She addressed the issue with praise, not panic. She called it God's bill and therefore God's responsibility. And heaven always pays what heaven owes. And when the Lord is your source, no job, no person, no contract can bind your flow. For supply is not a paycheck, it is a presence. And it answers not emotion, not effort, but authority. And I wonder, beloved listener, if you will do the same, if you will stop speaking about the bill and start speaking to it, if you will stop saying, "I don't know how this will happen," and begin saying, "My words are the gate, and this need is already met." If you will stop treating money like a master and start treating it like a servant, sent to obey your word, not your worry, I wonder if you will claim your divine right, not later, not when things feel better, not when the numbers improve, but now, in the midst of the contradiction, in the presence of what seems missing, in the face of every voice that says, "Be realistic." I wonder if you will look at your own financial need and say what she said, with calm and with fire. This is God's rent. It is already paid. For the law has no favorites, only principles, and what worked for her will work for you. Not because she was lucky, not because she was better, but because she spoke it into law, and so must you. For the treasury is not accessed through begging but through boldness, not through crying but through commanding, not through feeling rich but through saying, "I am rich," even when the purse feels thin, even when the evidence is absent, Even when your heart trembles, say it still. Say it again. Say it daily. Say it hourly. Say it until the mountain moves, until the check arrives, until the rent is paid and the overflow begins and you realize it was never about the money. It was always about the mouth. So I ask you now, what is the rent in your life, and what will you say to it? What is the appearance of lack, and what decree will you raise like a scepter in the spirit? Will you speak as a victim of the economy or as the heir of divine treasury? Will you speak from fear or will you speak from your throne? Because the one who became a millionaire, the one who built an empire, the one who opened the floodgate, shed nothing more than you have now. She had only a word, and she spoke it, and it obeyed. And so shall it be for you. There is a line in the sand, invisible to the eye yet absolute in its effect, a line that separates those who live by appearance and those who live by dominion, and this line is crossed not with effort, not with striving, not with more hustle or harder work or longer hours. It is crossed with the tongue, with the mouth, with the word boldly spoken in defiance of fear, in disregard of what the senses report, in rejection of the culture of complaint and the vocabulary of lack. And so many stand on the edge of this line, trembling before the bill, narrating it, fearing it, resenting it, repeating it to friends and family as if its presence proves their defeat. But they do not realize that every time they speak about the bill instead of to it, they place themselves beneath it. They agree with its dominion, they confess its rule over their life, and they forfeit the divine throne of spiritual wealth for the dungeon of circumstantial reaction. But I say unto you, speak not about the bill, speak to it. For the bill is not your master, the bill is not your judge, the bill is not the measure of your value or the limit of your supply. It is a servant that awaits instruction, a piece of paper waiting for a prophecy, a temporary assignment waiting for a permanent word. And when you understand that every financial demand is merely an invitation to command, you will never again tremble before an invoice. You will never again fear the envelope. You will never again cry over a due date. You will lift your voice and say, with the boldness of heaven in your chest, Bill, you are already paid. I thank divine substance that you are fulfilled in perfect ways. My supply meets you before the deadline, and I walk in total ease, total order, total provision. You see, bills are not curses. They are opportunities to exercise your royalty. They are not traps. They are triggers for truth. They are not evidence of failure. They are invitations to faith. Every invoice is a stage for the word to perform. Every debt is a doorway to dominion. Every financial appearance is just that, an appearance, a mirage sent to test whether you will narrate fear or command abundance. And let me tell you, I have seen with my own eyes the woman who turned every bill into a blessing by speaking joy over it, by laying hands on it, not with dread but with decree, saying, You are evidence of divine expansion. You are already satisfied. I bless you and thank you and release you to be fulfilled by the invisible hands of God. And yes, some mocked her, some said she was delusional, some said she needed a better job, a better plan, a better backup strategy. But she knew what they did, not that the backup plan is always worse than the word, that the mouth of the faithful commands more than the hands of the fearful can ever gather. And month after month, when the bank said no, the word said yes. When the numbers said empty, the word said full. When the fear crept in, she answered it not with tears, but with truth. And the supply never ran dry. Not because she knew the system, but because she knew the source, and she kept her mouth aligned with heaven, no matter what earth screamed. You must understand, money is not moved by worry. It is moved by word. It does not respond to panic. It responds to power. And when you look at the bill and speak about how impossible it feels, how heavy it seems, how unfair it is, how scary the amount is, you activate the vibration of lack, you call more bills to you. You magnetize the very thing you loathe. Because the universe does not judge your emotions, it multiplies your declarations. And if you call yourself broke, if you call the bill a burden, if you speak of not enough, then the law obeys you, and lack appears in full obedience to your tongue. But if you rise, if you shift, If you begin to walk through your home, speaking not to your stress but to your situation, laying your hand on every invoice and saying, "Thank you, God, that this is paid before it is due. Thank you, God, that this is covered without strain. Thank you, God, that I am not under this. I am over this. I do not serve the bill. The bill serves me, and my word creates its resolution." Then, my dear listener, then the angels begin to move, the channels begin to open, the phone begins to ring, the client who forgot you returns, the debt that seemed final is forgiven, the refund that was denied is approved, and all because you chose to command rather than complain. This is the habit. This is the law. This is the way. Speak not about the bill. Speak to it. Decree over it. Love it with power. Bless it with faith. And walk as one who is never surprised by supply, because you do not depend on man, or paycheck, or time. You depend on the living word, which you speak daily, hourly, boldly, joyfully, and lawfully. Let your tongue be the instrument of your wealth, not the echo of your fear. Let your declarations govern your bank account. Let your praise write the checks. Let your faith be the funding. And know this: every bill has a name written on it, and it is not yours, it is God's. And God is never late, never short, never confused, never poor. Speak accordingly. Speak like the air you are. Speak like a multi-millionaire who knows that every paper of debt is just waiting for a word to transform it into testimony. Speak to the bill, and watch it bow. There is a line in the sand, invisible to the eye yet absolute in its effect, a line that separates those who live by appearance and those who live by dominion. And this line is crossed not with effort, not with striving, not with more hustle or harder work or longer hours. It is crossed with the tongue, with the mouth, with the word boldly spoken in defiance of fear, in disregard of what the senses report, in rejection of the culture of complaint and the vocabulary of lack. And so many stand on the edge of this line, trembling before the bill, narrating it, fearing it, resenting it, repeating it to friends and family as if its presence proves their defeat. But they do not realize that every time they speak about the bill instead of to it, they place themselves beneath it. They agree with its dominion, they confess its rule over their life, and they forfeit the divine throne of spiritual wealth for the dungeon of circumstantial reaction. But I say unto you, speak not about the bill, speak to it. For the bill is not your master. The bill is not your judge. The bill is not the measure of your value or the limit of your supply. It is a servant that awaits instruction, a piece of paper waiting for a prophecy, a temporary assignment waiting for a permanent word. And when you understand that every financial demand is merely an invitation to command, you will never again tremble before an invoice. You will never again fear the envelope. You will never again cry over a due date. You will lift your voice and say, with the boldness of heaven in your chest, "Bill, you are already paid. I thank divine substance that you are fulfilled in perfect ways. My supply meets you before the deadline, and I walk in total ease, total order, total provision." You see, bills are not curses. They are opportunities to exercise your royalty. They are not traps. They are triggers for truth. They are not evidence of failure. They are invitations to faith. Every invoice is a stage for the word to perform. Every debt is a doorway to dominion. Every financial appearance is just that, an appearance, a mirage sent to test whether you will narrate fear or command abundance. And let me tell you, I have seen with my own eyes the woman who turned every bill into a blessing by speaking joy over it, by laying hands on it, not with dread but with decree, saying, "You are evidence of divine expansion. You are already satisfied. I bless you and thank you and release you to be fulfilled by the invisible hands of God." And yes, some mocked her. Some said she was delusional. Some said she needed a better job, a better plan, a better backup strategy. But she knew what they did, not that the backup plan is always worse than the word, that the mouth of the faithful commands more than the hands of the fearful can ever gather. And month after month, when the bank said no, the word said yes. When the numbers said empty, the word said full. When the fear crept in, she answered it not with tears, but with truth. and the supply never ran dry, not because she knew the system, but because she knew the source, and she kept her mouth aligned with heaven, no matter what earth screamed. You must understand, money is not moved by worry. It is moved by word. It does not respond to panic. It responds to power. And when you look at the bill and speak about how impossible it feels, how heavy it seems, how unfair it is, how scary the amount is, you activate the vibration of lack. You call more bills to you. You magnetize the very thing you loathe. Because the universe does not judge your emotions, it multiplies your declarations. And if you call yourself broke, if you call the bill a burden, if you speak of not enough, then the law obeys you, and lack appears in full obedience to your tongue. But if you rise, if you shift, if you begin to walk through your home, speaking not to your stress but to your situation, laying your hand on every invoice and saying, "Thank you, God, that this is paid before it is due. Thank you, God, that this is covered without strain. Thank you, God, that I am not under this. I am over this. I do not serve the bill serves me, and my word creates its resolution." Then, my dear listener, then the angels begin to move, the channels begin to open, the phone begins to ring, the client who forgot you returns, the debt that seemed final is forgiven, the refund that was denied is approved, and all because you chose to command rather than complain. This is the habit. This is the law. This is the way. Speak not about the bill. Speak to it. Decree over it. Love it with power. Bless it with faith. And walk as one who is never surprised by supply, because you do not depend on man, or paycheck, or time. You depend on the living word, which you speak daily, hourly, boldly, joyfully, and lawfully. Let your tongue be the instrument of your wealth, not the echo of your fear. Let your declarations govern your bank account. Let your praise write the checks. Let your faith be the funding. And know this: every bill has a name written on it, and it is not yours, it is God's. And God is never late, never short, never confused, never poor. Speak accordingly. Speak like the heir you are. Speak like a multi-millionaire who knows that every paper of debt is just waiting for a word to transform it into testimony. Speak to the bill, and watch it bow. Now hear me, and hear me well. For this next truth must go deep into the sinew of your soul, must pierce the unconscious agreements you've made with fear, must dissolve the subtle betrayals you've committed against your own authority. Because it is not merely the words you speak aloud that shape your financial reality. It is the agreements you whisper in the back corridors of your inner speech, those silent contradictions that cancel the very laws you tried to activate. And I have seen it again, and again. A man will speak boldly at dawn, "I am wealthy, I am prospered, I am divinely provided for," and yet by nightfall, when the mail arrives with the bill, when the client delays the payment, when the expected check fails to appear on time, that same man mutters beneath his breath, "Why isn't this working?" Or says to his friend, "It always takes so long for me," or sighs into his pillow, "Maybe it's just not my time." And in that moment, his morning seed is plucked from the soil, his faith is interrupted by his fear, his decree is nullified by his doubt. And the angels who had begun their work now fold their wings and wait for a new order, because the spiritual court does not operate on emotion, it operates on congruence. You cannot say, "I walk in wealth," and then speak as if you dwell in lack. You cannot declare, "Money flows to me freely," and then lament over prices or complain about inflation. You cannot speak divine identity in the light and contradict it in the shadows. Your words must match your walk, your tongue must echo your trust, your sentence must not be double-sided. And I tell you now, with the gravity of divine law behind me, inner contradiction is more dangerous than outer poverty, for a man can be broke and still align with truth. But a man who contradicts his word is a man who wars against his own wealth, who digs up his own seed, who locks his own gates, and then cries that heaven forgot him. This is why the scripture says, "A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways." James 1:8. And instability is not merely a condition of the emotions, it is a spiritual sabotage. a metaphysical fracture that leaks your power and delays your harvest. And so if you are to be wealthy by law, if you are to walk in the certainty of spoken increase, you must learn the habit of inner alignment, of spiritual integrity, of vibrational unity, where your mouth and your heart and your posture and your tone and your inner monologue all speak the same thing, not out of force, but out of divine agreement. This is what I call the holy mirror, where the inner world reflects the outer declaration, where the private thought does not betray the public word, where you say, "It is done," and mean it in every cell, every breath, every vibration. And I do not say this to burden you, I say it to free you, for once you stop the internal sabotage, once you refuse to speak against your own word, once you guard your tongue as you would guard a crown jewel, you will find that wealth responds not to your hustle, but to your harmony. So let me give you the antidote. Every time you are tempted to say, "It's not working," replace it immediately with, "It is working beneath the surface." Every time you want to ask, "Where is it?" declare instead, "It is on the way now, and nothing can stop it." Every time you feel the rise of doubt, say aloud, "My word is law, and the law cannot be broken." Every time someone tries to speak fear into your faith, respond not with argument, but with truth. I do not walk by appearances. I walk by revelation. And if your mind begins to chatter with contradictions, speak a louder word, not to argue with the noise, but to overwrite it, to reprogram it, to cast it out with rhythm and certainty. This is the discipline of the wealthy. This is the mastery of the spoken millionaire. This is the practice of divine wealth embodiment. And if you will be rich by law, not by chance, not by circumstance, but by divine alignment, then your voice must become one with your vision. Your declaration must become one with your inner knowing, and your speech must not waver, not falter, not bend to the winds of doubt, but stand like a pillar of fire, saying without hesitation, without apology, without contradiction, "I am rich. I am supplied. I am the living decree of divine abundance. And I speak no other law." Let this be your vow, to let no phrase escape your lips that you do not want multiplied, to let no murmuring live in your heart that you do not want echoed in your world, to become so single-minded in your speech, so unified in your tone, so aligned in your vibration, that the gates of wealth swing open not with resistance but with recognition, not with effort but with ease, because they know your voice, they know your word, they know your certainty, and they obey. And now we come to the bedrock, the root, the holy origin from which all substance flows and all riches recognize their master, the eternal truth that cannot be overstated and must never be underestimated, that who you say you are determines what the world gives you. That identity is not a passive inheritance, but an active decree, that until you rise in the boldness of your spoken name, your finances will continue to reflect confusion instead of clarity, echo back lack instead of abundance, for the universe is not responding to your actions, it is responding to your identity, and identity is always declared, never discovered, never given, never earned. It is spoken, it is chosen. It is assumed in the full spiritual authority of the I Am, which precedes all manifestation and undergirds all true wealth, because I tell you plainly and without hesitation, if your mouth does not know who you are, your bank account never will. Let us go back to the beginning, the truest beginning, the moment when God said to Moses, not, "I do," not, "I will," not, "I have," but, "I am that I am." And this is the divine root, the metaphysical seed, the eternal blueprint that has never changed, for the wealth of God is not in what he does, but in what he is, and the wealth of man, made in that image, flows not from his striving, but from his speaking, not from his earning, but from his declaring, not from his proving, but from his proclaiming. And when you say, "I am rich," you are not pretending you are participating, you are aligning, you are stepping into the architecture of heaven's code, and every angel, every force, every law of substance takes note. Do not be deceived by false humility. for it is one of the devil's most subtle poisons. This timid avoidance of saying what is true in spirit, just because it is not yet seen in matter. Do not wait for the appearance to claim the title, for the word must come first. That is divine order. The lie of the world is, once I have, then I'll speak. But the law of God is, once I speak, then I shall have. The wealth is not outside waiting for you to catch up to it. It is inside, waiting for you to agree with it. And until you say, with fire and finality, I am abundance. I am divine supply. I am the chosen steward of heaven's overflow. Your riches will remain locked, not because God withholds, but because your mouth has not yet used the key. And let us be clear. This is not ego. This is not bravado. This is not wishful thinking wrapped in spiritual language. This is spiritual dominion. This is sacred inheritance. This is metaphysical alignment. This is the law of creative command that says, the word is made flesh. And if you want to walk in a millionaire's flesh, you must first walk in a millionaire's word. You must say it when you feel it and when you don't. You must say it when the bills are stacked and when the balance is low. You must say it when your neighbors mock and your friends misunderstand. You must say it because it is truer than your situation, stronger than your surroundings, older than your upbringing, and more powerful than any history written by appearances. You must make it your habit, your ritual, your sacred mantle. I am wealth in action. I am abundance walking. I am divine money moving. I am the vessel through which God pours gold into this world. Say it when you rise. Say it when you rest. Say it in the mirror. Say it when no one is listening. Say it when the doubt tries to creep in. Say it not to convince others but to command reality, and reality will obey. For spoken identity is the throne from which all manifestation is ruled. If you speak as a beggar, life will treat you as one. If you speak as a victim, the world will oblige. But if you speak as a king, if you speak as a divine heir, if you speak as one seated with Christ in heavenly places, then the money, the ideas, the people, the contracts, the surprises, the inheritances, the windfalls will begin to make their way to you, not slowly, not reluctantly, but urgently, because heaven rushes to fulfill the word that sounds like its own. You do not need permission. You do not need credentials. You do not need proof. You need only to remember your divine bloodline and speak accordingly. For it is written, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. Say so, child of God. Say it with power. Say it with rhythm. Say it until your atmosphere adjusts, until your cells believe, until your enemies are silenced, until your windows are opened, and your floorboards shake under the weight of divine increase. Speak it now. I am the wealth of God in human form. I am the overflow of the kingdom on earth. I am the voice that money recognizes. I am the identity that prosperity obeys. I am who God says I am, and that means I lack nothing. Say it once, say it often, say it forever, because this is the foundation. This is the frame. This is the furnace in which your fortune is forged. And once you speak it, once you truly inhabit it, once it becomes your tone, your tempo, your truth, there is no power on earth or hell that can keep the millions from answering your call. There was a woman, an artist not wealthy by appearance, not connected by social standard, not known by name in any gallery or circle of prestige, but rich in vision, rich in sacred hunger, rich in spiritual sensitivity, for she had studied the word, not with the casual eye of the curious, but with the fervent gaze of one who knew that her supply must come by spirit or it would not come at all. And when she looked at her blank canvases, she did not see a lack of solace, she saw divine invitations waiting to be spoken into motion. For she remembered that the world is not moved by talent alone, not by hustle, not by marketing tricks or strategic networking, but by vibration. And the highest vibration is the word spoken in alignment with divine law. And so instead of praying out of desperation, she chose declaration over doubt, prophecy over pleading, and every morning, for 12 days without fail, she rose before the sun and looked out into the invisible and said not with strain but with certainty, My divine patron appears now. She did not say it with hesitation. She did not say it with analysis. She did not say it to test the waters of heaven. She said it as one who had walked through the fire of former lack and had come to know that the fire cannot burn the voice that walks in truth, that appearances cannot threaten the soul that commands with faith. And she said it because she had grown tired of small affirmations and polite hopes. She said it because she was ready for the heavens to move under the sound of her voice. And she knew deep in her bones that supply had nothing to do with who saw her work, or liked her posts, or mentioned her name in rooms she had never entered. That supply did not come from galleries or grants or gatekeepers, but from the throne of God itself. And that throne answers to faith. And faith is released by word, and the word becomes flesh when it is not contradicted. On the 13th day, the email came, not a pitch, not a maybe, not a request for a discount, but a decree of its own. I've followed your work silently for some time. I'd like to fund your next series. Tell me what you need for 1 year. 1 year of rent, 1 year of paint, 1 year of rest from begging the system, 1 year of divine supply, 1 year born from 12 days of spoken authority. She did not sell her soul, she spoke her seed. She did not campaign, she claimed. She did not plead with a man, she positioned herself in law. And I tell you now, child of God, this story is not a rarity, it is a prototype. For it is not her talent that summoned the patron, it was her voice. It was not her brush, it was her boldness. And it will not be your resume that summons your wealth. It will not be your effort, your grind, your logic, your hustle, your degrees or your networking events, or your aesthetically curated feedsit will be your decree. It will be your tongue. It will be your spiritual identity spoken without apology, or delay, or contradiction. And if you will but take this principle and apply it not for 12 days as a gimmick, but as a covenant, then, you will see that the patrons, the contracts, the inheritances, the collaborations, the divine surprises are already lined up in the invisible, waiting not for your perfection, but for your command. So declare it now. My divine patron appears now. And let it be more than words. Let it be the voice of heaven through your flesh. Let it be rhythm, not reaction. Let it be law, not longing. Let it be certainty, not suggestion. Speak it as a priest, as a queen, as an heir. And do not explain it. Do not wait for proof. Do not ask if it's working. Simply speak it. And watch what breaks open. Watch what finds you. Watch what obeys. For the universe is a servant to your decree. And your spoken identity is the address at which your wealth delivers its abundance. And now, beloved, now that you have tasted the weight and wonder of spoken power, now that your soul has risen from the ashes of disbelief and tasted the oxygen of dominion, now that your tongue has been reconsecrated, not as a servant of appearances, but as the throne room's own trumpet, it is time to build a rhythm, a holy cadence, a daily structure by which the law may respond, not occasionally, but continuously. For manifestation is not an act of emergency, it is the result of mastery. And mastery comes not through striving, but through rhythm, not through panic, but through practice, not through endless effort, but through divine repetition. So, I give you now a spoken sequence, forged not in hope, but in absolute metaphysical certainty, a pattern for 21 days, to be said aloud each morning and each night, and whenever fear rises or doubt knocks, or the old mind tries to reclaim its position as the loudest voice, you return to these words, not as a magic spell, not as a wish, but as law, as contract, as covenant, as the legal language of heaven that earth must respond to without delay and without option. For the law does not choose favorites, it only responds to faith released through the word. Speak now. God is my instant and unfailing supply. Say it slowly, not with rush but with reverence, not to get something but to become something. For every time you say it, you remind yourselves that the source is not the job, not the invoice, not the bank app, not the market conditions, not the favor of man, but the favor of God, which is not seasonal, not temperamental, not delayed, not partial, but instant and unfailing. And when you say it daily, you are not informing the universe. You are informing your subconscious, your nervous system, your inner nation. That lack has been dethroned, and the true king of supply is now enthroned upon your speech. Then declare, I walk in rivers of money, flowing from the unseen. Not ponds, not trickles, not drops of desperation. Rivers abundant, fluid, steady, moving with force, fed by unseen glaciers of divine inheritance, coming not from the faucet of labor but from the floodgates of spiritual law, not from the hands of men but from the heart of God. When you say this, you break the lie that says money is rare, that supply is shy, that wealth must be chased, and instead you enter the truth that money is motion and motion obeys direction, and direction is given by your decreer. Your river flows where your words tell it to flow. So if you have spoken dryness, speak rivers now. Then affirm, all doors are open, all channels are free. For the only thing that ever blocked your provision was your speech about blocks. The doors were never closed by God. They were closed by your declaration that they were. Every time you say, no one's buying, nobody's helping, nothing's working, you lock the vault. But when you say, all doors are open, you unlock the hallway of divine convergence, and the doors swing wide not because you knocked, but because you commanded. The channels what you thought were jobs, clients, platforms, partners are nothing but temporary costumes for infinite substance. And when you say, all channels are free, you untangle your supply from the knots of human logic and release it to flow through dreams, whispers, reversals, surprises, and paths that defy every budget and bypass every gatekeeper. Now, take these 3 lines, speak them in a row, 3 times a day, morning, midday, and night, for 21 days. Not as a test, as a ceremony, not as superstition, as sacred structure. Write them, record them, walk with them, and do not contradict them with casual sarcasm, budget complaints, or doubt-drenched commentary. For if you dare to speak as God speaks, you must also guard your tongue as God guards his word jealously, fervently, with zero tolerance for contradiction. This is not about impressing the universe. It is about authorizing the law. And when you live in that kind of spiritual speech, not for a moment, but for a movement, not for a crisis, but for a covenant, you will see that money does not come by effort. It comes by word, and that multi-millionaire is not a result you achieve, but an identity you declare, assume, and then wear, in every tone, every syllable, every thought, every breath. Speak, and keep speaking. The law is already moving. Now I must give you a word of caution, not to frighten you, but to sober you, not to restrain your faith, but to preserve it. For many a man has spoken the truth in the morning, and then casually destroyed his harvest by noon with the dagger of doubt, dressed in the garments of humor. Many a woman has sown the seed of divine decree, only to uproot it with one sarcastic remark at lunch, one just joking comment about how broke she feels, one cynical laugh about how expensive everything is, not realizing that every jest is judged, every idle word is counted, every laugh that mocks abundance is a lash across the face of the law. For the subconscious does not know when you are joking, and divine substance does not negotiate with sarcasm. For to heaven there are no such things as throwaway phrases, no such things as just being real, no such things as venting for a minute. Because the law of the spoken word is exact, it is legal, it is immediate, and it records every syllable as a command to shape the invisible into the visible. And if your declarations are followed by contradictions, whether through humor, pessimism, or emotional convenience, you become double-minded. And the scripture is clear that a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. You must understand this. Humor that mocks wealth, that ridicules prosperity, that speaks lightly of being poor, being broke, just surviving, is not harmless. It is a curse disguised as comedy. It is fear disguised as relatability, and it is a spell that places a ceiling over your own supply, for you cannot call in rivers while joking about drought. You cannot affirm open doors while laughing at closed ones. You cannot expect abundance while entertaining yourself with scarcity language. And yes, even the passive phrases, "It's too expensive," "Must be nice," "I wish I could afford that," they are not innocent. They are not neutral. They are permissions granted to lack to linger. They are open windows through which poverty creeps back into the house you tried to sanctify with truth. Let your mouth become a temple and not a tavern. Let your speech be priestly, not punchline-filled. Let your every phrase pass through the filter of, "Do I want this multiplied?" For your words are not only seeds, they are blueprints, they are hammers, shaping the architecture of your tomorrow. And every time you joke about lack, you extend your lease in the wilderness. Every time you complain for comfort, you delay the promised land. Every time you choose realism over revelation, you trade eternal law for temporal logic. And it will cost you quietly, slowly, but severely. The world may applaud the self-deprecating humor, may laugh with you when you diminish your worth, may find you relatable when you speak scarcity, but the law is not applauding. The law is not laughing. The law is not moved by how socially comfortable you are. It is moved by how spiritually aligned you are. And alignment requires purity, not perfection, but purity. A pure tongue, a pure intention, a pure expectation that does not dance with doubt, in the name of being real. So cleanse your vocabulary. Evict every phrase you would not want made flesh. Remove every line you would not want echoed by angels. Refuse to speak in a way that you would be ashamed to hear broadcast in heaven's courtroom. Speak only what you want to live in. Speak only what you want to hold. Speak only what you want your children to inherit. For your words do not just shape your money, they shape your lineage, your legacy, your spiritual DNA. And what you laugh at now, they will struggle with later. This is not a small matter. This is not about positivity. This is about spiritual jurisdiction. And when you treat the tongue as holy ground, when you speak not as a comic but as a king, not as a realist but as a revelator, not as a victim but as a vessel of divine dominion, then and only then will your decrees take root and multiply without sabotage. Speak with sobriety, and joy shall follow. Speak with reverence, and riches shall respond. Speak with honor, and heaven shall have no choice but to pour out a blessing so rich there shall not be room enough to receive it. Now listen closely, and let this truth anchor itself in the hidden chamber of your spirit, for it is not new, and yet it is always new to the one who truly hears it for the first time with the ears, but with the soul. Wealth does not arrive before the word. It never has, and it never will. For in the eternal economy of God's kingdom, the spoken word is always the pioneer, always the forerunner, always the divine trumpet that clears the invisible path. And every form of increase, every dollar deposited, every door opened, every check received, every opportunity arranged, every unexpected windfall, every gift, every raise, every inheritance, is nothing more than the echo-obedient response of the word that was sent before it, the word that walked ahead, the word that struck the ground of the unseen like a rod of power and commanded the soil to bring forth the harvest in due season. From the beginning, this has been the pattern. Before there was light, there was, let there be. Before Lazarus walked, there was, come forth. Before the storm ceased, there was peace be still. Before the loaves multiplied, there was blessing spoken. Before creation unfolded, the Spirit of God hovered, and the Word of God was voiced. And so it is with your wealth, with your supply, with your financial restoration, with your generational overflow, with your divine compensation. It cannot and will not appear until the word has been spoken, until the tongue has summoned it, until the voice has claimed it, until your decree has gone out into the spiritual ether like a legal command in the courtroom of heaven. I tell you again, the word does not come after. The word is not commentary. The word is not reaction. The word is first. Always first. It is not poetic. It is not symbolic. It is law. And when you realize that every dollar in your future is waiting behind the veil of, it is spoken, when you accept that nothing moves until you move your mouth, When you believe that your life is not funded by your labor, but by your language, you will stop waiting for a breakthrough, and you will begin issuing divine orders from the throne room of your authority. You will stop checking the bank account first and start checking the atmosphere of your words first. You will stop watching what the world is doing and start watching what your word is building. For your word builds worlds. Your word shapes substance. Your word rearranges the invisible to match the identity you claim. And when you begin to speak from the foundation of I am, when you begin to decree not as a hopeful beggar but as a divine ambassador, when you stand not in the vibration of wanting but in the vibration of being, then supply begins to stir. Then divine channels begin to move. Then provision begins to seek you out. Not because you hustled for it, not because you earned it, not because you were qualified in man's system, but because your word went before you and called the money by name, called the opportunity by name, called the favor by name. And like sheep hearing the voice of their shepherd, they began to run toward you. Because you finally spoke in the frequency of dominion, you finally aligned with the original law. You finally treated your tongue as the scepter of wealth it has always been. This is the revelation that changes everything. This is the revelation that silences fear, annihilates delay, dissolves the illusion of poverty, and replaces it with divine clarity. You are not becoming wealthy, you are already wealthy in the spirit, and your word is the bridge that brings that wealth into visibility. And every time you say, I am a multi-millionaire by divine law, every time you say God is my instant and unfailing supply, every time you say all that is mine now appears, you are building the invisible infrastructure of your wealth world. You are pouring the foundation, raising the walls, opening the gates, establishing the currency of heaven to flow into the earth through the power of your decree. So speak now. Speak with fire. Speak with faith. Speak with stillness. Speak with rhythm. Speak as one who knows not one who wishes. Speak not because you're desperate, but because you're divine. Speak not to convince yourself, but to command the universe. Speak because the treasury is listening. Speak because your angels are recording. Speak because every word is a hammer, a chisel, a blueprint, a trumpet, a flame. Speak because it is already done. Speak because the word walks before the wealth, and the wealth is already walking toward you. Now it is time to stop circling the mountain of theory and to step into the high country of practice. For you were never meant to be merely a listener of the word, nor simply an admirer of divine law, nor a gatherer of metaphysical information that floats around the intellect like clouds with no rain. You were meant to be a doer of the word, a vessel of the word, a speaker of the word, and above all, an embodiment of the word made flesh, because the word cannot work for the one who watches it as a philosophy, but only for the one who dares to wield it as a sword, to wield it as a staff, to wield it as the rod of dominion over every dry field, every empty cupboard, every unpaid invoice, every generational pattern of just enough and almost made it and barely surviving. So I say to you now, not as suggestion but as divine instruction, write your decree. Write your wealth identity not from your current condition, not from your emotional weather, not from what the accounts say or what the bills suggest or what your upbringing whispered into your nervous system. No, you must write from heaven's perspective, from your divine seat, from the I am that was given to Moses in the burning bush and handed down to every soul bold enough to drop their excuses and pick up their authority. For when you write, I am, you do not write as a personality but as a spiritual sovereign, and what you inscribe with clarity, faith, and vibration becomes the architecture of your unfolding. Do not wait until you feel ready. Do not wait until your mood cooperates. Do not wait until your logic agrees. Write the decree anyway. Write it with trembling hands if you must. Write it while your eyes still see lack. Write it while your bank account still whispers limitation. Write it not as a lie, but as a higher law, not as wishful thinking, but as kingdom ordering, not as motivational fluff, but as holy alignment. And once it is written, do not hide it in a notebook to collect spiritual dust, but speak it aloud morning, noon, and night until the atmosphere bends, until the soil responds, until heaven nods, until the invisible takes form. before your very eyes. Say it before you check your phone. Say it before you check your email. Say it while brushing your teeth. Say it before every meeting, every payment, every step into the world. Say it in rhythm. Say it with reverence. Say it like a priest and a queen and a king and a prophet and a child all at once. Say, I am the steward of divine wealth. I am the circulation of supernatural prosperity. I am the trusted channel of abundance. I am a multi-millionaire, not by striving, not by begging, not by hustle, but by divine law. And when the doubts rise up to mock you, ignore them. When the voices say, "Who are you to say such things?" rebuke them. When your old identity knocks on the door of your mind asking for attention, for safety, for approval, do not let it in. Speak louder, speak bolder, speak truer. Because you are not speaking to impress yourself. You are not speaking to sound spiritual. You are speaking to align your soul with the throne. You are speaking to command the elements. You are speaking to override the history. You are speaking to activate the kingdom. For when you say, I am, you are not asking, you are establishing. You are not hoping, you are legislating. You are not predicting, you are birthing. And the more you speak, the more the path clears. The more you decree, the more the patterns break. The more you affirm, the more the invisible begins to bend toward you, not out of pity, not out of coincidence, but because the law cannot do otherwise. The law is not emotional. The law is not conditional. The law does not care if you're crying or doubting or unsure, it simply obeys the rhythm of the spoken word. So write your decree today. Speak it with fire. Speak it with stillness. Speak it with unwavering identity. Say it before the check comes. Say it before the contract appears. Say it before the job shifts. Say it when you are laughed at. Say it when you are alone. Say it when you are tired. Say it when you feel nothing. Say it until the atmosphere yields. Say it until the evidence arrives. Say it because your tongue is no longer a slave to circumstance. It is now the architect of divine substance. Say it now. Write it today. And let the treasury of heaven, which has waited in stillness for your command, begin to move mountains in your name. And now, beloved soul, hear me not with your ears, but with the center of your spirit, with the marrow of your being, with the breath that remembers Eden and the silence that still knows God. For we have come to the end of this spoken journey, not to close a chapter, but to strike a match that sets your world ablaze with supernatural order. Because you were not born to bow before lack, nor to chase coins like a beggar in the marketplace of men, nor to shrink your divine inheritance into budgets of survival, but to rise, to reign, and to speak as one who remembers where they came from and what kingdom they represent. For the treasury of God has always heard your voice, but it waits for tone, for confidence, for law. So I say to you now, in the fullness of truth, you will not speak as the world speaks. For the world speaks doubt and calls it wisdom. The world speaks fear and calls it caution. The world speaks limitation and dresses it up as logic. But you will speak heaven, you will speak divine structure, you will speak like one who knows the word is the cause and the world is the effect. You will speak not to survive but to command, not to plead but to plant, not to wonder but to wield, for the word in your mouth is not a phrase, it is a force. I tell you now, and I do not stutter, I spoke it into Lawand. It obeyed. It did not ask my age, it did not check my qualifications, it did not care about my past, my family, my degree, my failures, my delays, my debts. It heard the voice of dominion, and it aligned, because the word spoken in law is the highest government in the universe, and nothing can overrule it. Not economy, not timing, not opposition, not delay, not background, not fear, not logic, nothing. This is your time to speak not for motivation but for manifestation. This is your time to throw off the grave clothes of probability and step into the radiant robe of certainty. This is your time to become unrecognizable to your old self and unshakable to this world. This is your time to treat your word like a military command, a legal document, a royal edict. a sacred seed that cannot be reversed, cannot be revoked, and cannot be delayed unless you yourself dig it up with the shovel of doubt. So write your decree in the comments, yes, publicly, boldly, as a covenant, as a line in the sand, as a spiritual announcement to all dimensions, visible and invisible. Write, I am the steward of divine wealth. I am a multi-millionaire by spiritual law. I am the voice of divine provision in this generation. I do not chase money, money obeys my word. Let every sentence be spoken not to perform, but to legislate, not to manifest eventually, but to realign immediately. Let your word go before you like fire through the field. Let it burn the thorns of hesitation, fear, and delay. Let it open the gates no man can shut. Let it summon angels, people, resources, ideas, contracts, provisions, and appointments in divine timing. Let it establish a new cycle, a new atmosphere, a new spiritual identity where you no longer try to get rich. You speak as the one who is. And now, I leave you not with advice, not with inspiration, not with empty encouragement, but with a mantle of spoken dominion. Wear it well, speak it daily, guard it fiercely. Because when your word becomes law, the world must bend, and it will, and it has, and it already is. Comment your decree. Subscribe to stay in this rhythm of divine remembrance. And walk in your wealth not because you hoped, not because you tried, but because you spoke it into law. And law never returns void.